What Big John at? Uh-oh. Hey, don't pull it Alec Baldwin on us.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, don't worry, we ain't all.
Appreciate that.
The flag.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't have a shooter.
Yeah.
Big caliber.
Hey. Dave doesn't get no hands. Dave? They be like, hey, what?
We should have rode those donkeys in.
I did ride my dog.
No. Okay. Yeah, watch your ears, because here we go. Well, here in a few minutes we'll need some help blocking the road, because we don't mind getting shot, but we do hate getting run over. The sheriff says we got to block the road in order to do these. So we figured that's a pretty good idea. In any case, first I'm going to tell you a little bit about Oatman. Now, Oatman is a gold mining camp, not a town. It has no city government, no city boundaries, no city anything. It's just a community built around gold mining. Gold mining started up in these mountains as early as 1865. The Moss Mine sits about 2 miles off in that direction. It was operated from 1865 to 1942. But the gold that actually started the town of Oatman and the boom of Oatman and the Oatman mining district would not be found until 1895, the first time around. In 1895, a man by the name of John Whiteley was following Beale's Trail. The Beale's Trail ran from Santa Fe, New Mexico to Los Angeles, California, going through these mountains a half mile up the road from here. And it was called Beale's Trail because Lieutenant Colonel Beale built it in 1858. Now, he was following that trail when he realized there was a quartz vein over the side of the mountain. He went to investigate, realized there was gold running through that quartz, so he went back to Kingman and stuck a claim on it. Well, he came back out to work his claim. Somewhere along the line, 2 other men realized he'd found something out there, so they followed him out from Kingman just to see what it was he'd found. When they realized what it was and how much of it was, they decided they were going to take it from him. He decided that wasn't going to happen, so they all ended up in a gunfight over the gold, and before it was all said and done, they were all 3 killed. So the gold was lost for another 4 years. Now, 4 years later, in 1899, a man by the name of Jose Jerez was drug staked by Henry Loving just to get him out of Kingman for a while. Jose had been a colonel in the Mexican military, but by the time he got to Kingman, he was just a heavy drinker and kind of a nuisance. So they drug staked him just to get him out of town. They sent him out along Beale's Trail and somewhere around the top of Sitcrease Pass, which is about 5 miles up this road from here. And his telling the story, he fell asleep and his burro was watered off right in the middle of the night. Most people knew him really well, said he more like he just got drunk, passed out, forgot to tie his burros down. But in any case, the next day when he went to go find those burros, they were standing right next to the quartz vein that Whiteley put a claim on 4 years earlier. He went back to Kingman, stuck a claim on it. They came out and they worked their claim for about 6 months. They got about 1,000 yards in the ground before they realized they didn't have the manpower or the money to get it up in operation the way it needed to be done. So they turned around and sold the whole thing to United States Steel for today's money, about $1.5 billion. Now, Henry Loving went on to be a very prosperous businessman and died a very wealthy man. Jose, on the other hand, took all his money and went to San Diego, spent it all on whiskey, women, and having a good time. Lasted him a couple of years till he got swindled out of a bunch of it, so he came back to the Gold Road mine and started working as a roustabout. He worked there for about 1.5 years till his alcoholism did him in. In his alcoholic delirium, he decided the reason he was losing all his weight had absolutely nothing to do with drinking too much. He figured because something crawled down his stomach in the middle of the night, was eating everything he was eating, so he wasn't getting any nourishment. Well, he also figured he didn't know how to solve that problem, so he mixed himself up a rat poison cocktail and drank it down. It killed the rat, all right, but he also killed himself, and now he's buried 3 miles up the road in the Gold Road Cemetery. Now, that story was written up in the Kingman, Oatman, and Mineral Park newspapers back in the early 1900s. From 1901 to 1942, Oatman was the most populated place in Mojave County, with an average population of over 10,000 people. And between 1910 and 1918, there were actually estimates there could have been as many as 40,000 people out here in the mountains around us, all looking for gold. This was the place to be. But in 1942, after World War II started, Roosevelt deemed that gold mining wasn't necessary for fighting World War II. He needed the materials to build the weapons to fight the war rather than gold. So he asked the miners to go mine other things. They did. When they left, they took a lot of the infrastructure of Oatman out in order to fight World War II. And when the war was over, everybody thought the mining was going to come back because most geologists believed they'd only taken 1/3 of the gold out of these mountains. There's still 2/3 of it still here. And from 1901 to 1942, they took a rough estimate of somewhere around 36 million ounces of gold out of these mountains. So if that's only 1/3 of it, there's still a lot of gold out here somewhere underground. And in none of the veins that we know run through these mountains did they ever really find anything close in mining terminology that would be called the mother lode. They found a lot of bonanzas, or they found at least 4 of them that we know of. They found one in 1912 over here that was worth $15 million, and that was at $20 an ounce. So there's still a lot of gold out here somewhere underground. In any case, in 1942, the population would dwindle down to about 300 people. Those 300 would stick around, believing the gold mining would come back. But in 1951, when they realized the gold mining wasn't coming back anytime soon, and they no longer needed Schaefer Spring, about 5 miles up the road just on the other side of Cypress Pass, to water radiators and horses any longer, they put in a bypass to eliminate the windy road going around the backside of these mountains behind us. They no longer needed to come through the mountains, so there was really no reason to come through here anymore, so they put in the bypass, and Oakland died and became a ghost town. It went from a population of 300 to 3 to nothing for the next 30 years. It would pretty much be a town of 3 to nothing, except for 1955 when Hollywood came up and filmed a movie called Foxfire. Again in 1957 they came up and filmed a movie called Edge of Eternity, and then in 1961 they filmed parts of the movie How the West Was Won. But other than that, it was pretty much a ghost town for the next 30 years. It would not be until 1978 when I-40 officially ran right over the top of the bypass going around the end of the mountains. When that happened, Oakland died, or Oakland started to come back to life. More and more people were traveling down 66, and if you wanted to stay on 66, you would now have to come the original route through the mountains and through Oakland once again if you wanted to stay on 66, what I call the Grapes of Wrath route. It would not come back to a really busy tourist town until after 1987, when they created an organization promoting Route 66 and the small towns that bypass I-40. And that got up and running. More and more people start traveling down 66 again, because we now sit on the longest stretch of Route 66 you can take in one stretch. You can go 163 miles from Ashfork, Arizona to Topak, Arizona, down by the river, and go right through the middle of Oakland. But other than that, the next longest stretch you can find, without having to get on and find it again, get off and on it, is about 63 miles, and I believe that's over to California. But Oakland started to come back to life. Gold mining would not